Lakshman Achuthan of the Economic Cycle Research Institute. Once again, I might say, there's some market economists doing a different style than you who have agreed with you, slow down in order.
After
here we are.
Begrudgingly.
Yeah. But some were there, many weren't. What do the optimists get wrong right now? What are the relative optimists missing in what I'm going to call a near recession call by you?
Well, I don't think they're looking at good forward-looking indicators. I mean, that's because if you were, you would see that they're continuing to ease. They have not turned up yet. So if you want to get optimistic, and occasionally we do get optimistic when the indicators turn up, and that's what you need to see.
Which indicator sticks up?
Well, right now the weekly leading index came out this morning. It went to a lower negative growth rate. We need to see that growth rate turn around and turn back up before we start talking about any rebound. And back in May, when we were talking about when we went public with this slowdown call, it was because those were pointing down. They have not turned up. So when you look at the transitory soft patch second half rebound story, everybody was saying, oh, earnings are going to hang on, and they're not.
Full disclosure, folks, here at Surveillance Midday, we're soft patch free. What's a soft patch? It's not in Blinder. Lazier doesn't teach it at Stanford. Where did this come from?
Well, I think it came from weakness in the data that was showing up in the first half of this year, and trying to blame it, remember, on Japan or the Arab Spring, or and blaming it on those things and saying when those things pass that we're going to rebound again.
What within your WLI, and I understand these are proprietary things structured by Jeffrey Moore eons ago. Everyone has a great respect for your series. Give us just a little window into those substances. I don't need the Coca-Cola formula, but give me a window. What's one thing that stands out?
Well, look, there's the big drivers, right? So you have confidence, you have profits growth, you have what's going on with housing, you have what's going on with inventories, with jobs. All of these things are linked, and when they start to feed on each other. So when we're looking at the WLI, we're looking at how pronounced is it, how persistent is the move in it, and how pervasive is it, because that tells you when they're feeding on each other, you're getting into a feedback loop, and that's not something that you can have a policy announcement and say, stop the feedback loop. You can't do that. The business cycle is more powerful.
Okay, spiral was the word Bill Gross used. Earlier this morning on Bloomberg Surveillance, I spoke with Mr. Gross and asked him what he wants to hear from the president as he addresses the nation within spiral and after the negative jobs report.
Well, I'd like to see some gusto. President Obama and other developed economy leaders and their associated fiscal budgets, they have to counter the private economy hesitancy and advance programs that not only employ, but employ productively, I think.
We have the Oxford English Dictionary on the terminal. I don't know if the word gusto's in there. I'll have to look it up. Is gusto within your weekly leading indicators?
Not in anything recent we've seen.
That's that confidence, that effervescence Bill Gross wants.
Don't hold your breath for that. And I think, to be fair, okay, there's not that much the president or Washington can do about where this economy is headed in the near term. The business cycle is much more powerful. And another point, which I think is lost on most people, is that just because we need strong jobs growth or we want a vigorous economy, it doesn't mean you can have it. Okay, there's no policy that is going to deliver that for you, and it isn't just because of some nearby recession, the 07-09 recession. If we look at the pattern of expansions, how fast does this country grow? Ever since the middle of the 70s, it's been stair-stepping down. There's no way we were going to have a vigorous recovery.
Lakshman Achuthan, with his shed, I want to bring up this chart here, which shows some of the challenges that Mr. Achuthan faces. Cyclical to structural reality. There's a normal market, cyclical market. The unemployment rate is in yellow, and in white is a percent of unemployed greater than 26 weeks. It's a normal cyclical response. And then something changed. We went to a structural hysteresis, a chronic long-term unemployment. How have you had to change your work because of this new non-cyclical milieu we're in?
Well, it's history doesn't begin at World War II. I think a lot of charts and models do.
Stop. Really important. The economic world begins in 1947. I'm going to say thanks Vasily Leontief, but I may be off by a person or two.
So these leading indexes that we're using they were born in the jungle variety booms and busts,
right.
the depressions that predated the Great Depression.
Jeffrey Moore working with Frank Knight, George Stigler, and others.
All this. So the original, they're originally looking for leading indicators, all they were looking for was a leading indicator of revival out of the Great Depression.
Right.
The Secretary of the Treasury Morgenthau was asking Moore and Mitchell and these guys, Mitchell and Burns, to look at this, and they were looking at post-Civil War data to look for leading indicators. So that's where our stuff today has its roots, and we have seen stuff like this before. And when, in particular, when you get to long duration unemployed, which is what really ails it, when you get to that long duration unemployed, the only way you're going to see that number come down is when we have a long expansion, which we are not going to get. We're not going to get a long expansion. So you're going to have long duration unemployment remain high and cycle around high levels for an extended period of time.
This is away from your watch, but the president speaks Thursday night. What's he need to do for American business? I mean, this is separate from what ECRI does, but you're in the game. I mean, you're out there talking with everybody worldwide, over in Europe all the time. What does he need to do to create something new for American business?
First off, I think, and maybe you're starting to see that in their new projections, the reality should be presented, which is that the unemployment
forecast right.
Look, the unemployment rate is not coming down a lot. And I think they're starting to acknowledge that. You know, don't make the mistake of saying it's going to be 8 or less anytime soon, because it's not happening. The other thing, and I don't think the electorate is going to care about this, he doesn't have control in the short term. But medium and longer term, you have control, you have some influence as a policymaker, and focus there. That's where the meat is.
Lakshman, thank you so much. Lakshman Achuthan, Economic Cycle Research Institute.